Hey everyone, and welcome to Business Boutique. I'm Christy Wright, and today we are wrapping up this series, 5 Ways to Be True to You. Now, before we dive into part 5, our final way to be true to you today, I want to do a quick recap. Part 1, we talked about experimenting. If you're going to live a life that's true to you, you've got to try on some different things. You've got to experiment and see what's right for you. And then in part 2, we talked about working hard because let's be honest, anything good worth having is going to take some hard work to get there. Part 3, we talked about humility. You will probably experience some seasons of being humbled as you step into this life that God has for you. And then last time, we talked in part 4 about letting go. We're going to have to let go of the old if we're going to step into the new to be true to you. And then I'm so excited because today we are diving into part 5, the final part in ways to be true to you. And that is where you have to be willing to go. You have to be willing to go. When God opens that door after he's prepared you and humbled you and you've let go of things, you have to be willing to actually step through the door in front of you. You can't just stand there. You can't just stare at it. You can't be scared. You can't be stuck. You've got to be willing to actually step through that door that God has for you. You know, I think of the example when I got started speaking. I've told this story before, but it's so applicable with this example here. You know, whenever I very first got started speaking, I had never spoken before. I had no experience, no training, no certification, no plans to be a speaker, by the way. This wasn't even a dream of mine. I just happened to see a problem in front of me. Rachel Cruz, Dave's daughter, had been booked to speak at this conference all over the country, multiple different cities, every single day, changing cities, changing venues. It was a crazy travel schedule. She was newly out of college. And basically 2 weeks before she was supposed to go on the road, Dave looks at this schedule and he's like, hey, this is not what we agreed to. This is more than we agreed to. You, me, Christy, Wright, has to go back to the conference and tell them she can only do half of those events. That was a problem. Their events started in 2 weeks, and they thought they had Rachel for 20 dates. They only were going to get her for 10, and I had to be the bearer of bad news. Y'all know the story. I got on the phone. I said, hey, I'm so sorry. She's not going to be able to attend, but she can come to 10 of them, and you can pick whichever 10. And I'll never forget what Chase, the man on the other end of the line, said to me. He said, Christy, what am I going to do? I've got her booked for 20 different dates. What am I going to do with the other ones? And I said, I'll do them. And he said, can you speak? I said, I think so. Yo, I had never spoken in my life. I just saw a problem and I came up with a solution. There was a door that opened in front of me and I walked through it. I can fix this. I can figure it out. I can make it up as I go. I'm just going to say yes to this opportunity before I know how. Did I know how to speak? No. I said yes before I knew how. So when God opens a door in front of you, you've got to be willing to walk through it. You've got to be willing to go before you know how, to say yes, even if you're not sure how it's going to play out, to assume that you can. In the absence of information, don't assume there's a rule that you're breaking. Don't assume there's a reason you can't. Assume that you can. And then if you can't, we'll figure it out then. God will open doors in front of you, but you have got to be willing to go. Even if you're scared, even if you're unsure, even if you're insecure, even if you don't know how it's all going to play out, even if you don't have a perfect plan and a perfect path and a guarantee that it's going to be successful, you've got to be willing to go. You know, it makes me think of the example in the Old Testament in the Bible when the Israelites went out to explore the promised land. This is the land that God had promised to them. If God makes a promise, guess what? He's not a liar. He honors his promises. He promised this land to them, and they would not go and fight for it. Now, again, they had their part to do. They had to walk through the door. They had to go to the promised land. They had to fight and do the hard work. We're participants in this life with God, even in the plans that he has for us. We are participants in this life, and they wouldn't go. An entire generation missed out on the promised land. Missed out on the plan and the promise that God had for them because they wouldn't walk through the door. They saw the door. He opened the door. He told them, this is where I'm taking you. This is the land. I've already won it for you. I have gone before you. This land is yours. And they wouldn't walk through the door. They wouldn't go. Man, that's a powerful lesson. I don't know about you, but I want to be someone that walks through the door. I don't want to miss out on what God has for me over there because I'm scared. Yes, it's scary. You know why? Because the life God has for you is bigger and better than you can imagine. That's a little scary. It's bigger. It's more exciting. It's new. It's different. Yes, it's a little bit scary. Yes, it's a little bit unknown. But you know what? If God said it, he will do it. If God opened that door, it is because he wants you to walk through it. So as we explore 5 ways to be true to you, 5 ways for you to step into this bigger, better, more awesome life that God has for you, you have to be willing to go. You have to be willing to say yes before you know how. You have to assume that you can. You have to be willing to step through even if you don't know how it's going to play out, even if you don't have a perfect plan, even if you aren't qualified, certified, confident, doesn't matter. God is not limited by your limitations. God is not limited by your lack of confidence. God is not limited by your lack of resources or talents. God is not limited by you. What God has for you on the other side of that door, he has for you because he's going to do something there. All you've got to do is walk through it. That's it. He will provide what you need every step of the way. But you have to be the one to take the steps. So as you explore these 5 ways to be true to you, you have to be willing to go. So your last journal question for this series is to write down where you might be sensing that God wants you to go. Where do you feel an urge, a nudge, a prompting, a stirring in your spirit? Is there a door that's been opened in front of you and you're just too nervous to walk through? Is there an opportunity that you've had your eye on, but it just feels a little scary and new? I want you to write that down. I want you to pray about it. I want you to think about it. I want you to ask God what he has in front of you, and then ask him for the courage to walk through that door. I hope this has helped you. I think it's amazing that God not only has these amazing plans for us, but he invites us to be participants in those plans. I hope this encourages you to not only be true to you, but I hope it builds confidence in who you are and the God that created you. Thanks so much for joining me.